Assalamu alaikum, peace and light unto you. May endless salutations, peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him and his family. Welcome to another season of Spill the Ruh. I'm your host Naba. I know it's been some time, but honestly I felt a bit burnt out and I needed to give the podcast a bit of a break. But now I'm back and I'm really looking forward to season 3 of Spill the Ruh, and I'm super excited and can't wait for you guys to tune in. There's going to be so many different topics and guests that will be on this podcast, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it all with you guys. If you're new here, welcome. Again, my name is Naba, and I'm the host of this podcast, Spill the Ruh, and the founder of RUH Platform. RUH Platform is an online platform, a space for you, for me, and Muslims everywhere who are listening to express their spirituality through various forms, like poetry, art, and storytelling. And by the way, if you're not Muslim, but you're listening, welcome. I'm so happy you're here, and I hope this space is meaningful for you. I want to talk a bit about why I started RUH Platform and this podcast. I feel that spirituality is a very important topic for us in this day and age, especially where we are on the brim of distraction, consumption, and instant self-gratification. We all have a soul, a spirit, and as we say in Arabic, as it's said in Arabic, your soul or spirit is called ruh, R-U-H, or some spell it as R-O-O-H. But in this case, for this podcast and for this platform, it's spelled R-U-H. Your ruh is your core, your center. And I can't remember who said this exact quote, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience on this earth. It's not the other way around, right? We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're actually spiritual beings. You know, our soul was put into our body, right? And we're having this experience on this dunya, in this world. And so everything we do, everything around us impacts our ruh, our soul, our spirit. And as Muslims, we believe that our ruh is what is going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Allah the Most High. When we die and when we leave this world, our actions are going to impact our ruh, right? And we want to go in front of Allah in a way that He's most pleased with us, inshallah, right? So how do we do that? Like, how can we live in this world and stay connected to our spirit? How do we live in this world with the world in our hands and not in our hearts, right? As the Prophet ﷺ has said, may endless peace and blessings be upon him. That how do we live in this world where it is not something where we're so attached to it, right? Like it's not controlling us in our actions, rather it's the other way around, right? Like how do we have control on our lower desires, our materialistic desires, right? Where like naturally as human beings, we're going to get hungry, we're going to be sleepy, we have all these needs, right? But there's a point where when it's becoming too much, or you are fulfilling a certain part of your life in the sense where it's just getting out of control, or maybe you're becoming so distracted from it. So how do we live in this world, enjoy it, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world, as he mentions in the Quran, that all of this was created for our enjoyment, right? But as a way to be thankful to Allah, and not as a way to be distracted from our true purpose. So how do we do that, right? I wanted to create this space where we, especially as young Muslims, and I mean like between the ages of 18 to 35, and if you're younger or older than that, that means you too, but you're most welcome here. I wanted to create this space where we can express ourselves and share stories with each other so we can help each other and be inspired, and also start these conversations, because what does it mean to be a Muslim in this day and age? And as you know, we've all been impacted by social media in some form or another, and there's a dark side to social media, but there's also a really bright side to it as well, because like, for example, through COVID, it helped us all stay connected in a way which we weren't able to, right, if we didn't have social media. So how do we have these conversations, right? And like, how does our experience here as a soul, as a spirit, impact us and our relationship with Allah? How does fashion and food and relationships impact our ruh, and how do we stay connected with Allah? When do we feel most vulnerable, and when do we feel disconnected from Allah, right? So this podcast essentially is an extension of RUH platform and a space to hold those conversations. And for me, like, I personally really enjoy podcasts. I find it a great way to spend my time. There's so much information out there and so many things you can learn through podcasts. And I remember, like, especially when I was in grad school, that was one of the things I really enjoyed doing while I was, working on things and just at work. And I really loved podcasts, and I thought it was very inspiring. And so if you're listening to this, you probably like podcasts too. So I'm glad you're here. I find that it's a great way to connect with people and get inspired and just learn from each other and have a space to hold these conversations. And, it's also important to note that a lot of times the guests that come on here, they can get vulnerable. We'll have conversations where we can get vulnerable and talk about serious things, but also it can get lighthearted as well. And I think the whole point of it is just to make it normal to talk about our identity as spiritual beings, that we live in this world, we enjoy it within the limits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent upon us, while also fulfilling our main aim, which is to please Allah, to obey Him, to love Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make Him the most beloved to us, and that every love essentially is based upon that love, the love of Allah. So I'm super excited for this season. Please do subscribe and rate and review this podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, you can rate the podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, you can leave a review as well. Please share on your social media and with your friends and family. I would greatly appreciate it. It will really help this space grow.